everybody.
Good evening.
Hello.
Rich is not here.
No, I didn't hear back from him.
Okay.
He may or may not be able to join my phone later on. Bob and I spent some time with Chris going through the budget sheets. So we're able to explain some of the things that are on there, questions we had. Scott, if you have additional questions, just let us know. We've got another meeting with Chris tomorrow as a follow-up to this meeting to try to get up if there are any other unresolved issues or anything that we don't understand that we'll take care of. So,
Okay.
all right. The suggest we start with the department budgets, and then we'll pick up the warrant articles, just capital items after we go through the budget portion first. If that's okay.
Sounds good.
The guidelines this year are 4% cost of living increases. Chris had been hoping that we'd be able to do total budgets coming in at less than that, but the personnel board met and decided that with the spike in inflation for the year, that we really ought to be increasing the salaries by more than what the basically 2% increases that have been asked for in the last few years. So there's a 4% increase for elected officials, a 4% increase for basically town employees, with the exception, of course, of that any employees who are working under contract have whatever is negotiated in the contract for their increases. And then in addition to the 4% COLA increase, there are step increases. And I think I mailed around a copy of the step wage formula page. And so we'll see as we go through that there are some raises that are bigger than 4%. Where that happens, that's because of either because of a contract that calls for it, and whether it's a multi-employer contract or the individual contracts that some individuals have, or because of the step increases on the wage scale in addition to the COLA. So the usual is just that with inflation, everything is a little more than it has been for the past couple of years. Past quite a few years, as a matter of fact. The moderator budget includes one extra thing this year, and that is going to be electronic voting being put through her budget. They had a discussion about whether or not they should just buy electronic voting machines, and after some discussion, it was determined that particularly for the first year that we would try it, we would probably be a lot better off renting the machines. So there's a budget item in there for renting 300 machines, voting machines. These are handheld voting machines for 2 meetings during the next fiscal year. And the other consideration was that the technology seems to change fairly rapidly on these things. So there's a question of if we in fact purchased them, particularly in this first year, if we just purchased them, might we be stuck in a couple of years with voting machines, handheld voting machines that just do not match up with what the electronics would say you could have for that time. So that's the item on contracted services that's in the moderator's budget, and the rest is just the regular salary increase and the items that she usually has. Any questions on that?
John, if I'm distracted, there's a search on for a woman that's lost.
Yeah, we've been getting phone calls about that.
Yeah, it's like right behind me. They're
Was
out,
that where they think, she might have gone into the woods near there?
well, there's walking trails between the golf
Yeah,
course.
right.
So,
Well, that's
anyways,
Sharon was just over in South Hadley and at the fire station that's there on Route 116 in South Hadley. There were South Hadley police cars, Granby police cars, and state police cars.
I've never seen so many state police cars.
That's basically what she was saying, that she had
Yeah.
more than she'd ever seen.
Drones, helicopters. Yeah,
Were you in drones too?
yeah.
I think I can hear a helicopter.
Where did she live on Amherst Road?
I think it's down in the meadows. Where the South Hadley Swim Club is?
Oh, okay, yeah.
Across the street, there's a private development down there. I think it's down in there.
All right, yeah, it started out with mostly doctors and whatnot many years ago.
Yeah, Dr. Maz is at the end, I think.
So that's
Anyways.
why and it butts the golf course at some point or comes awful close to it.
Right.
Okay, so if anybody knocks on your door asking if you've seen her, we'll understand if you have to leave the meeting for a minute.
I'll come back.
Okay. That's got to be scary, for everybody involved. The Board of Selectmen budget is next. There is included for the Board of Selectmen, but it's not in this budget. The salary for a planner and a conservation agent. And it's developed their own budget. I think it's budget number 175 that has that in it. So that if you look at the Selectmen's budget, there's a big decrease on the salary item 122 5111 000. And then there is another decrease in part-time wages, and then there finally is a big increase in wages in another line on wages. And those are mostly due to this position being moved out of this year's budget when it was funded but not used into next year's budget, moved to a budget of itself. In addition to that, there's a person who used to be part-time in last year's budget who is now a full-time employee in this year's budget. Part-time was really a small part-time, and full-time is a good-sized salary. So that's the other big difference in the salaries for this.
So the planner is for planning what again?
Well, it's a planner. It's someone to take over the work that we're now hiring out to the Pioneer Valley Planning Authority. We apparently hire them to do a bunch of stuff, and we'll take over that, plus a conservation agent, plus we'll hope this person will become or will be a grant writer also. Which has been difficult apparently to find time in the current administration to spend time writing grants. So they hope that the person will be able to do that too. So with all that, there's an overall decrease in this budget as the Selectmen's budget, but you'll see it picks up with the new budget for I think it's budget number 175, department number 175 later on. Bob, you have anything to add to that?
No. Well, actually, though, I wouldn't be surprised if when the finance committee report comes out, that it's gonna be just smooth, because it'll probably be included as part of the selectmen's budget. You know, just like,
Yes, probably. Like right now, there are 2 or 3 different small budgets that are reported as selectmen's budget in the finance booklet that comes out for the meeting. So as far as what the town sees, they'll see something that's a little different, but on the details that's behind that, that's part of what's going on. Finance committee budget is basically same as last year, which is a 2% expense increase. Reserve fund would keep the same at 130,000. Computer systems, small decrease in the budget. I didn't have any questions on it. The town accountant budget is basically a flat budget from last year.
That's still Chris, right?
Yeah. And then we have the audit budget, part number 136. And there is an increase in the audit expenses. And so we asked Chris about that, and here's what he said, that you may know the phrase single audit application. It's when federal grants to a town or to an organization exceed $750,000 a year. You need to have a separate report about the uses of the money and for the grants that were over $750,000, and there's several general questions that have to be answered as part of that audit. So that's the thing and that's been requested for fiscal year 21, 22, and 23. So that's the increase for this year, and I guess it'll be the same amount for next year, or a higher amount at least for next year. Bob?
So the auditors have to do some extra work to cover the grants. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah.
they have to send something to the federal government.
Gotta also go, yeah.
Okay.
And now, speaking as a federal taxpayer, I say good. The stories about the millions of dollars siphoned away from the supposedly relief programs during the COVID, it's just unbelievable stories. Oh. This is better late than never.
And they don't have to be audited.
Yeah.
I shouldn't say that. Maybe they do, but they don't perform it.
Yeah. The next, if there are any other questions on the audit? The next budget was the Board of Assessors, number 141. And the big difference here is that last year we had a replacement in the Board of Assessors. Somebody who used to work for the Board of Assessors for the town, came back from working someplace else. Before the year was up, that person left Granby again and is replaced by a person who is not certified as an assessor, still undergoing the study and testing process to become certified as an assessor, whereas the person who left had been an assessor. So there is a decrease in the compensation for that position. And it all is due to the fact that the qualifications of the person are still at this time slightly different, slightly less than what we had last year. Okay. Uh, the treasurer, all the difference really is compensation. The tax collector, this budget is basically fitting with all the guidelines. There may be some additional questions raised about either a possible software purchase or a small machine purchase, but they're not in this budget. If they come up, they may come up during the fiscal year while some study is being made about what kinds of things might be available and how they might work.
And let me go back to the Board of Assessors budget for just a second.
Yeah.
When you look at the numbers, it didn't make a lot of sense because the person that they had anticipated hiring was much more qualified, or that actually they did hire, I guess, and then left, whatever was the case. But the thing was that when that person came back, we had a supplemental budget approved at a special, and that person was very high up in the scale.
Yes.
Okay. So that's why there isn't an awful lot of savings when you get right down to it at the end.
Mm. She wasn't here for the full year, I don't think.
No, she was only here for, I don't know. Did she actually start? Yeah, I guess she did, but was only here for maybe a month.
Yeah,
And then somebody made her an offer that she couldn't refuse.
Yeah. Okay. Legal department. Basically fairly flat. Personnel board. I think the personnel board almost never asks for money for anything. And then every once in a while they have to spend something on supplies, or a few years ago they bought some supplies. So there's something in there just in case, but it's just this token amount of money. In the town clerk budget, there's a 4% salary increase for the town clerk. The other big increase in compensation wages is because a position that used to be classified as a clerk in the town collector's office has now been reclassified by the personnel board as an assistant town clerk. And there's a big difference in salary between a clerk position and an assistant town clerk position. So that's where that comes from. Another thing is, that's not in this one, so later on. In the board of registrars, the increase there is the usual kind of increase that takes place when there are elections. Next fiscal year, we've got elections in November. There will probably be primaries before that. So they have to budget for more elections. And that seemed to be it on that. Okay. Now the new one is number 175, the planner conservation agent. So there's a wage line and an expense line, and this is basically what would have been in, or something like it would have been in the select board's budget for this year. And as Bob said, will probably be reported as part of the select board's budget for the consolidation report. I hope they in fact are able to hire somebody and have the person start working with some of these things. I know that we have been able to get quite a bit in grants when Jay was able to spend some time working on it, but it takes a lot of time, and hope we have somebody who can get to work on it.
I'm just gonna throw a comment in.
Okay.
At the salary that they're budgeting here,
Yeah.
that's more money than our highway superintendent receives. Not to say that's right, wrong, or indifferent, but just to show it's a position that's pretty well up in the scale.
Yeah. The highway superintendent's salary is carried in a number of different places in the budget.
Is it?
Yeah, it's not all carried in the highway department. Some of it's carried in I think in the
If you looked at,
snow and ice removal, I think some of it's carried.
There's no salary in snow and ice.
Okay, well, some of it's carried in I think I list. I don't have it with me.
if you looked at the book last year, wouldn't the book consolidate it?
Huh?
Wouldn't last year's book consolidate it? The blue book. Doesn't that
No.
have individuals' names and their amounts?
That's the annual report,
Right.
not the meeting booklet.
No, I know, but if you're looking for his total number,
But
wouldn't
the
you?
total number would be in the annual report.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know that some goes into the sewer department, and a couple other things like that were the highway superintendent is a key person for activities within the department, and so they split up his salary between these departments depending upon how much time he spends.
Okay.
I do not have.
I said there wasn't in snow and ice, but it's not a salary as defined as salary. It's a wage. All right, and it shows in the snow and ice carrying something like 10 grand, almost 11 grand of a salary. All right, but when I said there wasn't anything in snow and ice, I was looking at the line that said salary
Wow.
on the summary at the top, and it isn't categorized as a salary. It's categorized on the next line as a wage, but then listed as one of the 5,100 accounts as called a salary down there.
Yeah, as I said, I can't put my finger on where I've got that information, but sometime within the last few years, we had the same kind of question, and we're surprised about how low the salary looked, and we found out that, in fact, it's split among a number of different budgets based upon the amount of time that is spent on stuff. Okay, want to move on to public buildings. All right. In public buildings, the wages line is up by 6%, and that's the reason. And the reason is that it's the 4% COLA, but almost everybody, or quite a few of the people in the department, are getting step increases, and the step increases contribute then to the overall wage increase too. So it's COLA plus. It's less than the total 3% of the step increases, but I think there's about a 3% difference between steps. And not everybody perhaps gets a step increase, but that's the reason it's driving the 6% instead of the 4%.
Hello. My Zoom job.
There's an item for, repairs. About halfway down the page.
You're off the heavy high speed road.
Up by, $5,000. And,
Yeah, that's good.
apparently the,
All that well. Good. Okay. All right. Bye. Bye.
one thing that happened with this budget is that we had a contract with one firm for security and fire alarm, sold, and which we used for the public service complex, I think. The building here, this building here, library uses it, I think. And there used to be one firm, and the guy sold his business. And now they no longer have one business to deal with. They have to go to two different sources, two different providers. There's monthly agreements. There's a new for the regular maintenance on these things. They need new security pads, the pads that you have to enter into the building, the code pads. This goes for the old library, the annex, the town hall, West Street School, and in addition to that, the playground equipment that's in the park does not necessarily meet all the new requirements for playground equipment. And so there's select board has been asked to take a look at that and to spend some money and bring the equipment up to speed for the new regulations. The other thing is that there are new sidewalks are needed at the back of the police station. There's some things that have to be done with well water. The cell tower behind Mark's garage is on its way out. So there's a lot of things which kind of fall apart all at once that are they need to do some stuff on, so that they're included in this budget. That's where we stand on public buildings. So the total increase for public buildings is a 14% increase at $55,000 increase, and some of that is wages. The rest and a big piece of it is, in fact, bigger than the wages is the increase in the contracts that we have to let in order to get this work done now. So I don't know, it's about what we have. You know, it seemed like if you look, for example, at the old library electrical, it's on the second page. At the old library electrical, the cell tower generator, council on aging roof, and the electrical system in the old library, those things themselves add up to, let's see, about $22,000. And those are all basically one-shot projects. You know, it's not ongoing maintenance increases. It's just one-shot things that have taken place.
So on this cell tower, at one point, someone would propose putting one on my property, and it wasn't my tower. It was, whatever, Verizon or something,
Yeah.
or some other company that then leases it to. So how come we're spending the money to put some new generator there? Isn't that a money-making venture on its own? I don't understand why the town's picking up the tab.
I don't know if that's a telephone. Is that a cell phone? I don't think it's a cell phone tower, is it?
Yes,
Cell tower generator.
But they must be talking about, I would assume they're talking about were used for police and fire communication.
I heard you say Mark's garage.
we're talking both things. This is a question I tried to ask when we were with Chris, John. And my question was, do the other people that are on the cell tower benefit from our generator? And he didn't know the answer to that. The generator is primarily being used for the repeaters for the police and fire and highway.
Okay.
So theoretically, it's up to us, but and I guess we must have put it in to begin with, but whether or not anybody else benefits from it, he wasn't sure. And I think he was going to see if he could find out.
Okay.
Maybe we can ask that question tomorrow and see if he's had any time to look into that.
So it's like a backup generator in case they lose power? Or is it something that runs all the time, or not that it's that important?
I didn't ask that question. What's good, the place has to have power. I mean,
Right, but
so
I would
it
have a
must be-
generator. You don't want to lose communications if there's a power failure, so a generator would kind of make sense.
Yes.
Okay. We got a couple questions asked. Okay, anything else strike you, Scott?
No, good.
How about building utilities? Costs are up. There's some backup sheet there.
I'll make probably the same comment I made a year ago, John, which I didn't make with Chris. But it's a hell of a lot of money to pay to keep the West Street School building in heat. Plus there's the cost of insurance, and well, it sort of sits there with who knows what anticipated future use, if any. But I think, as I told you in an email, it appears that that's being used now as the home for the public buildings, because I see cars parked there during the day and trucks. So they apparently vacated the old library.
No.
No?
No. Yeah, I drive by the old library on my way out to Route 202, and there are almost always some trucks parked there, and the chain is on or off at different times as trucks are parked there. I've got the impression that was being used.
I think we got another question for tomorrow.
Yeah, yeah.
I see, like Bob, I see those trucks there, like on the east side of the building. Towards
I've
the
seen-
center, towards the center of town on that side.
Yeah, I've seen the red van on the other side, but there's also been like 3 or 4 cars parked there.
So the bigger picture is what's going to happen with the building and how long we're going to continue to put money into it.
I think
Is there a current plan on that building?
Not that I know of. Not that I know of. You know,
It's an albatross around our neck.
Right.
this seems to me, this is another example of, we're a small town. There isn't any slack in the few employees who work for the town to suddenly take on a large project. And I would think of determination of what to do with the Wet Street School would be a large project, and has to do a lot of investigation as to what the possibilities are, what a cost benefit analysis is for different things. But the way it is, for example, we do not know what it costs just to keep West Street School going each year. You know, we can add up some stuff in the budget here, but what is the real cost to keep West Street School going? And if we're using it at all, it's just causing additional wear and tear that if we decide not to just tear it down or just to sell the whole property as is this going to create additional cost for maintenance costs? I don't know the answer to any of those questions, and I don't know if Chris knows the answers to those questions, but I know the town as a whole doesn't know, and there's been no project that I know about that really sits down and looks in a detailed fashion. I've heard in the past that some people have made inquiries into what it would cost just to buy that whole property. I don't know if the town wants to do that. There's some downsides to doing that, but it's not going to get solved as the course of normal business, because I don't think we have the personnel to do that. There's too many things going on for the number of people we have that can work on these sort of stuff.
There was a study done 2 or 3, maybe 4 years ago now, looking at possible uses of the building and renovating it and tearing it down and all that.
That was Lou Berry was the head of that study, yeah. But that's now lost.
No, it's not lost. It's still around.
No, but I mean, having gone this long, you can't just pick that up and dust it off and say, here's what the situation is.
Well, this one you might very well be able to. In his mind, you would. Because the cost to renovate it was prohibitive. And there was no value to the building. And it cost you a ton of money to tear it down. So it was one of these between a rock and a hard place. But I think there's a difference of opinion as to whether we should try to do something with it or not try to do something with it.
So let's say somebody made an offer. How would that get resolved? Board of Selectmen accept an offer like that? Would it have to go to the town, or?
I think the Board of Selectmen have the authority to do it.
Remember, there was a lot of angst about the St. Hyacinth's property deal. I don't know if this kind of similar to that, some large piece of property in town, and anyways.
The angst on the St. Hyacinth's thing, since I was working for the Selectmen at that moment in time, the town said no, because the town felt that the building was not really usable for the purposes of being a town hall. It's a bunch of small rooms with little baths attached to them and whatnot. So, however, there were a whole pile of people in town that thought that it was a wonderful building and ought to be utilized.
Oh.
So we ought to have it. That's where the difference came.
Yeah. Okay.
In this one, I don't think it's the town. I think it's people in the town government. To refine it a little bit more. Some who feel that it has a use and we ought to try to use it, and others who feel we shouldn't. And there's drawbacks either way. I mean, it's not a, they say in Lou Berry's mind, it's a clear cut thing, get rid of it. And if it costs you $200,000 or $300,000, tear it down, tear it down.
Yeah,
I mean, it's a practical matter. If it's costing us $33,000 a year for heat, and who knows how much for insurance and electricity, a cost of $200,000 or $300,000 is, we've almost reached that point now while we haven't been using the building.
right. That rock in that hard place, right?
Well, let me ask another question. Are we soon going to have a high school building, which has no use? You know,
Then we could have two school buildings as possible town halls.
yeah.
But in my mind, if we spend the money to renovate or build a new high school, whichever that happened to turn out to be, I don't know how we can afford any money to ever end up with a town hall. And obviously, a consolidated town hall would seem to be something that the town should have.
Well, we have questions. There's no answers, but we have questions.
Well, we'll pursue the idea with Chris tomorrow, and he may or may not have time before the town meeting to give us any answers. We'll see.
I believe that he's on the side of using the building. And it might be that there's two members of the Board of Selectmen that aren't, or maybe it's 1, and 1, or 1 for, 1 against, and 1 uncommitted.
Well, if they moved all the town offices into that one spot, that wouldn't take up the whole building, certainly, by any means. Would it be possible to tear down part of the building and keep just part of it for our town hall? Or are the underlying services so integrated they can't do that?
I don't know, John. I didn't read the report. I've only read comments that people have thrown out from it.
Yeah. And certainly the building that being used as town hall seems to me to be in very good shape.
Pardon?
The building that's now being used as the main town hall seems to me to be in good shape.
You mean the phone company building?
No, the main town hall building, where the council on aging.
Questionable. What's the main town hall building? When you've got 3 elected officials up in the phone company building and part-time Board of Selectmen, or, they only meet in a council on aging, you're dealing with limited use as a town hall, but be that as it may. I don't know what. I guess the town hall would have to be the COA building because the other one's called the town hall annex. Rightly, wrongly, or indifferently.
Yeah, that's what I was kind of referring to as. And one we own, one we don't. That's another way to look at. So one.
I think going back sometime, I think the intent. Well, I won't say intent. rationalization for buying the building was that in the event we ever do come out with a combined town hall, we could sell the COA building.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I was thinking about, is that would sell, could sell that and pay for tearing down the West Street School.
Actually, who knows, it might be tough to find a buyer.
Okay. That's public building utilities. Let's see, the next budget item is, public buildings gasoline. And then the police department. Now, the police department has got, police department has an 8% increase in wages, 8% increase in, that drives the total increase, which is 8%. There's also 7% increase in expenses, but they're much different order of magnitude than the wages. For the police force, they're in the third year of a 3-year contract that was designed to bring them up to the medium wage of surrounding communities. And in the contract, a specific amount for each of the 3 years is in the contract. So the contract for next year, which drives the budget, was determined when it was signed 3 years. Again, this third year of the 3-year contract. The other thing, last year, I mentioned this, we were told that the Commonwealth had changed some of their rules and regulations on part-time employees. And basically, anyone that you hire as a part-time police officer, I think it was starting this fiscal year, has to be trained as if he or she were a full-time police officer. So it takes the full amount of training. Byproduct of that is that if you have somebody that you're paid to train as a part-time officer, recognize that you've actually trained them as a full-time officer, they're then qualified to go work as a full-time police officer in any community they want. And this is thing being faced by all communities, the result of which is that moving away from part-time police force to full-time police force, just because it becomes so hard to hire part-time people. They're qualified to be part-time, they're qualified to be full-time, they'll take a full-time job someplace. So the part-time positions are being phased out. One of the other byproducts of that is overtime is going up. And you can see that the overtime budget is up. Overtime budget is up by 37%. So I'm sure the Commonwealth was well-intentioned, as they always are, but this is costing a bit of money. Criminal services are up. The software increase, and also Chris wasn't positive, but maybe part of the budget includes there's now a facility that policemen are able to use cell phones to make checks on a number of things, people that they were not in fact able to do in past years. And so that service may be costing a little bit of this increase in the criminal services. Those same kind of considerations apply to dispatch. So dispatch is up. Auxiliary police are way down because we just don't have a real use for them, need for them that we had before. The dispatch budget is up, the wages are up, 10%. And includes and overtime is up 40%. So that's
So, John,
nothing we can do about it. We're in the same size police force.
so are they all officers or are they not officers? Dispatch.
I don't know if everyone is an officer. That I don't know. Bob, do you know?
I don't think so.
Yeah. I just don't know.
And if you notice, the dispatch budget still has part-timers in there. Part-time wages.
It's different from the 8% too, so maybe it's not union.
So those could be
No, they are union, but I don't think they're officers. But when officers go in there to work, they're being paid on an overtime basis, so.
I got you. Yep.
Okay. Fire department.
Oh,
Fire and ambulance department. Might as well do them together. We've had an interim fire chief for some time. And the interim fire chief, they may or may not have hired a new fire chief Monday night. I don't know. Did anybody hear what happened at a select board meeting Monday night? I don't know.
I don't know.
I think they were interviewing. I think they're having final interviews for fire chief. I don't know what happened with that. The problem is that, let me just throw a little side here. Has anybody read? I've been reading in reports on the internet that the figure that I read last week was that they think something like 40% of the workers in the United States changed jobs last year. And people are finding it so easy to move to higher paying jobs that they're doing it. Switching careers somewhat. So the situation here was that they were finding that it was very, very difficult, matter of fact, almost impossible in some cases, sometimes, to find people to take the night shift and to call in and to take the night shift if somebody needed to be out sick on the ambulance. Part-time people. They could not get part-time people to do that. So they're looking at a proposal, looking at the possibility of moving to having more full-time people working different shift structure, working 12-hour shift structures, but moving a lot of people to full-time. The budget has a budget in there that would move from 5 to 8 full-time people. And Chris was saying that this doesn't necessarily have to be done all in 1 year. It could be done in pieces, move to 6 or 7 next year, see how it works, and then move on to all full-time people if it looks like it's a good idea. It seems like no matter what, this is going to cost more money to run the ambulance. And once again, I mean, here's the thing: we're a little bitty town. You know, when you have a big town or community like Springfield, you're not going to run into this problem. You're going to have lots and lots of people. You don't have to worry about whether you have ambulance coverage. Small town, we can't do that. We can't, it'll be very hard just to give up ambulance coverage, because if you made a contract, or if you expected people to get their own ambulances, people are going to die. If you don't have a source that you can know will be able to be arriving at the houses of people who need an ambulance right away. It's hard to do that without a town commitment. And if you make a town commitment, you're basically subcontracting out. It's going to cost you more than it theoretically would cost you inside, if in fact you can get coverage inside. So now we're at the situation where it could be that to get the coverage inside the town, it's going to cost a lot more. To get the coverage outside the town is going to cost a lot more. Unless there's a fundamental different way of thinking about ambulance services.
So just, how many calls did they go out on? We've asked for this before, the data on, how many police calls, or how many ambulance calls, or how many fire calls did they actually have? And, you could kind of spitball it to say, well, if you went to a service, it would be whatever a call. And then you go, oh, we're better off, or we're not.
Well, all the call for ambulance, fire, police, all the calls don't result in action necessarily, or the action for which you would need a full-time ambulance, full-time police car. The ambulance go out on a lot of calls, I think, where they have to go on the call, but they get there and the person may not need to be.
It's still, that would be included. They go out, so, you'd still have to pay the outside service if they were doing it.
Well, I don't know how outside services work, but unless it was an enormous outside service, if you wanted to be guaranteed that they were on call 24 hours, you'd be in the same situation that we are now. How can we guarantee that you're on call 24 hours without paying somebody to be on call 24 hours?
Well, your analogy about Springfield having, bigger is better, maybe more ambulances is kind of spread it out, right? I don't know. Just.
Put down a question for tomorrow. What is the ambulance staffing now? And what's the proposal, the ideal proposal? I think what Chris said, we were going to have paramedics 24/7. But when you do math, that comes out to be close to 8, which you mentioned. If you take your 8, multiply it by 40-hour weeks, that's 320 hours. And if you multiply 7 days times 24, it's 168. So it seems like we have the math would show that we basically have 2 paramedics on duty all the time. So my question then becomes, is it necessary to have 2? Or can you do it with 1? Or is there something that I'm missing?
You mean like one higher qualified person?
Well,
and
there's
lesser
paramedics and then there's EMTs.
Right.
We're talking about going 24/7 with paramedics full-time. As distinct from full-time most of the time, but night shifts being done by call-in or part-time. I don't know.
You need 2 people in case you need some person to drive and some person to take care of the emergency victim.
Yes, no question.
But they don't have to be. They don't have to be a paramedic. The driver doesn't have to be. Perhaps the driver doesn't have to be a paramedic. Doesn't have to be trained to that level.
I don't know, maybe we're
I don't
asking
know.
silly questions, but, you know, I mean, if we just keep going up and going up and going up, at some point, something's gonna not be covered, you know?
Yeah, you know, we're getting to fire and ambulance costing us a lot more. Police cost us a lot more. Schools cost us a whole lot more. At some point, I doubt we're going to be able to.
And public buildings are costing us a whole lot more.
Yeah, I don't see how we're going to be able to support all of those at the level that we're doing. Particularly another round of inflation. With another round of inflation, and it's going to be at least 2 years. We hope it ends then, but the last time it went up to 8.5%, it didn't quite come back to 2% in the next couple of years. We can only raise property taxes by 2.5%. I can't see the town voting a property tax increase on top of that, just because the raw numbers are so high. I don't know where the money's going to come from to support all these things at the level we're doing now. We're just too small a town to do that.
I don't know, 48% increase. 48%. And next year, the police contract will come up and then they'll, you know, it'll be their turn.
Well, the personnel board recommended 4% for the employees this year. And if you're running inflation at 8.5%, nobody's signing a contract at 2%.
Right. All right, I don't have any other specific questions about this other than, you know, the
Yeah.
thought you have, John.
Okay.
I don't feel confident approving it this way. I think I need more information.
Hey, we've got, we know some past meetings. We have a philosophy of how to police the town. We have a philosophy of how to provide ambulance and fire services for the town. We have a philosophy of education. None of those philosophies have anything to do with finances. Absolutely nothing. You won't find financing as part of any of that. Towns, public institutions, there's always been thought that you just keep raising taxes and people will keep raising taxes and get high levels of services because that's what they want. I think you can reach a point where the taxes become so much, people will say, wait a minute, I don't know if we do want that. But where are you going to get a change in a philosophy on how to police the town? Not from the police department. Where are you going to get a philosophy on how to change how we provide ambulance and fire services? Not from the ambulance and fire department. Where are we going to get a change in philosophy about school education? Not from the school department.
Well, maybe that
Select board either on any of those.
so
But
maybe like
something's got to get someplace.
so that person that was gonna oversee the school, you know, or what was potentially going out at the school, what's the solution there? Maybe he looks at police and fire as well. Some outside third party.
Yeah,
Or maybe we just have to wait until, you know, it gets to that, something dramatic happens that we're forced to.
the last time we made major changes, it was either make major changes or go out of business. That was when the landfill stopped. And people were not willing to look at it until we actually ran out of money. And I'm afraid that that's going to be everybody's approach. Well, we haven't actually run out of money yet, so let's not make waves. I don't think there's much interest in looking to the future and thinking about the future in an organized fashion. So, we'll try again. We'll say something in our report, but we've said it a number of times. And
one thing that sort of is in my crop, Chris mentioned that the split up of cost was like 25%.
25-75. Yeah, 25-75. And then almost, well, let's see, I think aren't all of the fire department personnel paramedics or EMTs?
Yes.
But they have some additional EMTs or paramedics who are not firemen, or firewomen, not fire personnel. I don't know that.
Wait a minute, try what you lumped together there. Do it again.
We have police, we have a fire personnel, we have EMTs, and we have paramedics. There's a difference between EMTs and paramedics, but is there any difference between EMT or paramedic and fire department personnel?
Yeah, there are people that are just firefighters.
There are
I don't
people
know how many, and it may very well be that one of the requirements is that you will work to become an EMT. But I think what you're paying a premium, I believe you're paying a premium for the training that a paramedic gets.
For sure.
And then pardon?
For sure.
And you've got that person with 75% of their time doing fire department duties, which means you're really paying a heck of a premium to have that paramedic around because they're only working 25% of the time as a paramedic. That was my case.
Seems like a system problem. Maybe the new fire chief will take a look at that.
I don't think he's any different than the police chiefs and the highway department guys. They all want to do a wonderful, great job. Same with the superintendent of schools. He wants the school system to be wonderful. He doesn't, none of them want it to be mediocre.
Right.
I don't know, I looked up, remember the school said they use zero-based budgeting?
No.
That's what they said. That's what they even said it last night. And to me, I looked up what a definition of zero-based budgeting is. And you start everything out each year fresh.
Yeah, zero-based budgeting is a financial concept. They don't use zero-based budgeting. They say the equivalent of service. It's a zero service budget.
Yeah, because there's no revenue involved in their projections. No.
That's right. So the zero service budget cost you, 40% more. So what? That's what you want is a zero service budget. That's how their philosophy of doing school is that if we only do what we did last year, and isn't it a shame that we only are able to do what we did last year, but if you only do what you did last year, here's what it's going to cost. No fundamental rethinking.
No, but they don't do that.
No.
They start out and it's almost like it's a wish list budget every year. So consequently, they put down if they're providing, I don't know, nursing services, we'll say, not that I have any axe to grind with the nursing personnel and system. They want to make sure they provide the best health issues for all the students while they're at school. So they put down a budget that will get them that. And then we start making cuts. We cut that. And no, we haven't cut it. All we've done is reduce the request. And it's called a cut. And to my way of thinking, calling something a cut is designed to get some public angst going that we're losing something. No, yeah, you are. You're losing something that somebody hoped you would get. But you haven't really lost it from where you are today. You should have heard. Did you happen to watch their session last night on the budget, John?
No, I didn't.
No. I've got to say, as I said in the memo I gave, or the email I sent you and Chris, I got confused because everything that they had told us has new numbers attached to it. I mean, whatever material we've been given as a budget now, throw it away, because they're going to give you, they should have given us a new budget today since they had it in print for last night. But in the next day or two, we'll get a brand new budget showing the way they propose to balance it. Which, Scott, if you were at the meeting, remember the committee that was formed, or the subcommittee that was formed, a couple of people from each of the groups?
As I left, yes.
Yes, and the purpose was to try to reconcile the shortfall issue.
That's
Well,
my understanding.
At our first and only meeting, Chris made a proposal to increase their funding by $400,000, and they were to cut 300 and whatever the difference was to their 729. The school committee approved the budget last night, and it was not that budget.
They approved Chris's proposal, but not their proposal.
No, they approved their
They
proposal,
approved
but not
400,000. They did not approve cutting 300,000.
They were glad to take the 400, and they've got a way where they rationalize or justify another couple of 100,000, but they didn't end up having to reduce their expenditures by the amount that Chris was there. And I mean, so consequently, the budgets, they now have a budget approved by vote of the school committee. That committee only had one meeting. We didn't resolve the difference. We resolved it so that they were happy to come up with a different way to solve their problem.
Well, it's a good thing we went to the meeting and came up with a solution. Oh, wait.
Let's get through a couple more of these things if we can. Inspections department, nothing. Plumbing inspector, sailor rates, health insurance. A lot of these things are just they always just fit right into the program. Highway department is the next big one. It's the number 420.
What is emergency management? Like a 911 thing, or?
No, that's a case of a nuclear attack.
Nuclear?
Well, they'd be called out in a nuclear attack.
All right.
That's among the possibilities.
I feel better now.
Among the possibilities. It's set up to it's set up for some to handle some kind of major disaster.
Okay, so like the siren kind of thing or something, or?
And they work with emergency management people for the state. When something goes on, the state would contact that individual.
You know, I think you have to have plans to turn your public buildings into public shelters, and
Okay.
how are you going
We
to
got
think
an
about
$8 increase in supplies. That's probably important.
yeah,
Sorry.
food and water, and it's the
So
whole,
they were under a 2% increase. So that's what 2% was.
Okay.
But the code red that we use for, which I assume is what we got to, the call we got on the missing person. I mean, it came through on my phone as a different, identification than normal. This
Yeah,
was emergent.
I think it was like maybe state. And my wife was reading something on Facebook, some different organization was involved.
No, this was the same voice that's always,
Yeah, but I think there was
Oh,
another
done.
one after that one.
pardon?
There was another call that came out after the first one from the town, I thought.
Well, the first one came, I got one from the town, I don't know, early afternoon or something. And then I got another one right around 6 o'clock,
Okay.
Yeah,
but it was from the same
same person, same voice.
person. And it was the same voice.
Okay.
I think, in the, in big cities or cities with manufacturing capabilities, Midwest cities, tornadoes and south hurricanes, I think it's where there's a possibility that the town could be completely disrupted by something like a tornado or an explosion, plant explosion. How do you react to that as a town? What do you have to be prepared to do? Does everybody know what role they're supposed to play? How they go about setting up the chain of command? I think that's what they do.
Okay. So the town, the highway looks within the 2% there?
Yeah, the total budget up 2%. There's really there's really nothing that's really grossly out of line.
But we don't know what they're asking for as far as vehicles or whatever. That's on another list.
Yeah, that's another list. Well, we can go through those later on.
We can go through those after John and I go through them with Chris.
Yeah. Snow and ice control, sewer, here's an interesting thing. Go to the Municipal Solid Waste Enterprise Fund. At 433. Now that's not to pass over. If you have questions on the sewer department or the snow and ice control, go ahead and ask. I didn't have any on them. But at the Municipal Solid Waste, what we were told is that the company that does our trash burning has gone bankrupt. So expecting the cost to burn the trash to go from $81 a ton to $97 a ton. That is not, so that's some of this handling costs. The other item is a kind of a one-time, or not one time, but once every few years, I have been here to buy these pay-as-you-throw bags to restock on those. That's the $9,000 near the bottom of the budget. There's been a little bit spent in past years, but nothing in quite a while. Not much in quite a while. But we found it interesting that the trash burner is going bankrupt. Okay.
And all those contracts were avoided.
Yeah, and the contracts were voided when they became bankrupt. So that's going to increase this cost to burn the trash.
So that's a pass through, because we don't have a contract with them. I mean, it's the waste management or whoever it is has the contract with them, right?
Undoubtedly.
Yeah.
But I'm sure the contracts are written with pass-throughs on those things.
But I'm not sure that the 20% increase that Chris threw in there is, it add up to 20?
Yeah, I don't know if that's covers that increase in the trash burning costs. Is that what you're going to say?
No, what I was going to say was he doesn't know who's going to do the burning of it.
Yeah.
So whatever number's in there is purely a guess at best. Or a best guess, take your pick.
Cemetery's got a pretty good increase.
Excuse me just a second. Okay, I'm sorry, what did you say, Scott?
I said cemetery's got a pretty good increase. Looks like it's in wages part-time, although that looks like it's all part-time, right? So the code 000 ENC SUP TSF, what do those mean? At the end of the number.
It's for encumbered.
Encumbered from, and SUP is a supplemental appropriation. And a TSF is a transfer.
Okay.
So if something came from the reserve fund, it would be TSF. If it was voted, voted by a town meeting, it would be SUP. And the ENC is just expenditures made with money from last year that was carried forward to this year.
Oh, okay. So was there a story behind the increase there, John, or?
Yeah.
I thought it was more graves being opened, I thought, wasn't it?
No, the real thing was that the portion of their wages, or a portion of the wages that are earned by the men are paid from the earnings on the perpetual care trust fund.
Oh, yeah.
And the rate of return on the perpetual care is at this point next to nothing. So consequently, the number of hours worked is still, we'll say, the same, maybe increased, but there isn't any offset coming out of any consequence coming from the perpetual care.
Gotcha.
Perpetual care is limited by definition to only spending the interest on it for wages. If you wanted to buy more land or plots or whatever, then you could use the principal, but otherwise you can only use the earnings.
Okay.
Yeah, I forgot about that. You mentioned I had never known that about the cemetery commission. So I think it probably just has never come up as a budget item. That they can use the interest on the principal can be used for these things, but the principal itself can only be used to purchase more land. It can't be used for these operations.
Or maybe developing the land that you bought so that it's usable.
Yeah, it's really for land, and that so if you need money for the wages and it's not generated by the interest, then you have to increase what you contributed from the town for that, and so that's what needs to be done.
And obviously the grass grows just as fast. And I think they get money from, when you were mentioning, John, about numbers of funerals or burials, whatever, there's a separate charge for everybody as a burial charge. And it must be that there's a little bit of or maybe a lot of profit within that number. So that if we'll say if a year ago, they had an awful lot of burials, they didn't need to use all the money, the burial receipts, and were able to save them and use them in a following year. But
Does all of that go into the same fund? And they just have to keep they just have to keep memorandum account of how much is the principal from the perpetual care contributions? Or is it more than one fund? Or is it a general fund? Like
you're using the word fund, and now you start to get a little technical.
yeah.
I believe that the perpetual care is an actual fund. I know that it's necessary on the books of the town to make a distinction between what's principal and what is interest.
Yeah.
Whether or not the burial money, where the burial money goes and where the interest goes, I don't know. It doesn't go into the general fund, because if it did, then we'd be budgeting it every year. So somehow, whether it's in one account or two accounts, it's more or less identifiable.
I guess it's bad taste to ask, do those funds get buried in the book someplace?
Some things are irresistible.
Board of Health's okay, nursing, council on aging. The principal thing on council on aging is that they are moving, spend more time on their outreach program. They've been spending 5 hours a week on outreach, and this is actually going out to people. They're going to increase it from 5 hours to 20 hours. And that's, the other thing is that the fuel assistance applications have increased, and there's just an increase in old people.
And they're doing away with a part-time clerk.
Yeah, they're budgeting for a clerical position, full-time clerical position, and it's was not deemed as necessary before this. And they have an interim COA director, and they hope to hire somebody during fiscal 23. I haven't been paying any attention to this council on aging for about 2 years. They had a lady who was in there, and then she was going to be out on leave for part of it. So we had to do something with the budget to account for paying for all that. It was a special one-time thing. But does anybody know, is that the person that was there a couple of years ago who is now retired from the position, or just quit the position and just staying at home or doing something else? I don't know anything at all.
I wouldn't, I heard something, but I can't say whether it was true or not, so I'd rather not repeat it.
Okay.
But I think that a medical issue was involved, probably the same that we had to make an adjustment for before,
Yeah.
became more serious.
Okay. Veteran services. This is another one I didn't ask any questions about, because I mean, as far as the budget goes, it's fine, but it's just how it works. I thought that the former fire chief took care of veteran services, or is it for a while? Wasn't the former fire chief doing that?
Yes.
So what is
I don't know who's doing it now.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, the senior lunch program.
Is that kind of in conjunction with the outreach thing?
No.
You said they got, no?
No. This is the cost to have somebody manage the program 5 days a week, make sure we have volunteers, make sure all the proper procedures are followed, make sure that the kitchen and dining areas are cleaned up. Apparently, the person who's doing this was going to leave if the pay wasn't increased. And so pay has increased. It's now it's 15 hours a week. I don't know what it was, whether it's more hours than that, but apparently the pay just wasn't enough for what was required to be able to hold somebody in the position.
Gotcha.
Annual inspection, library. The library is requesting to increase the work week time for the director and youth services. Moving the director from 32 to 34 hours and moving the youth service person from 35 to 37 hours. So
You got it the other way around.
the other way around.
I read a director 35 to 37 and
You're
the
right.
youth 32 to 34.
I didn't understand my notations on here. You're correct. I do.
I don't think we really got an answer to why. I mean, I raised the question, was the library going to be open more hours? And Chris said he hoped so. But he didn't say yes, it was, which would be the explanation for why more hours.
Well, particularly, I mean, you may be able to make a case that director might need more hours, including hours that are not times when the library is open. But youth services, you would think that would require the library to be open to provide youth services. I don't think they're going to do basketball games out in the parking lot.
No.
Well, maybe we'll have time to delve a little more into that one. But other than that, you know, once you get the salary set, the hours set, the rest of a lot of the stuff flows automatically. Retirement of debt, debt service interests, state assessments, intergovernmental assessments, liability insurance, county retirement, workers' compensation. Oh, I know which one. It was a surprise to me.
What's going on with state assessments?
School health insurance, state assessments.
That's the cherry sheet charges.
Oh, that's why they're going down?
No. Is there something else in there?
Well,
School choice-
there's brackets. There's brackets around the numbers, so something's going on there.
Yeah, the school choice tuition and charter school tuition has gone down.
You know, that means we've got more kids being educated here in our own school system.
Or else there's the school choice tuition
Less kids coming in?
That could be,
No, this is going out.
no, going out. It could be,
Oh, it's an expense,
one,
right?
for example, would be graduating seniors from other schools who are no longer in school. If there's a difference between graduating high school seniors and maybe graduating eighth graders, or graduating sixth graders, whatever the end year in a school is, if people are either then not being part of the school system anymore, or they're coming back to Granby, that the difference between that and the number of students that are going on to other schools, there could just be a differential there that if there's some big differential there, could cause a change. I don't know what causes a change. I don't know. We don't normally get figures on who is involved in this.
We got a flavor for, like the number of students, the change in the number of students that would affect this number.
Well, on choice out, it's in round numbers, $5,000 a student.
Okay.
So that would, on 72 grand, you're dealing with 14 students. 14 less students will be going to other school systems under the school choice program next year. Now, that's based upon the number of students that are
Currently,
school choice at some time right around now.
Right.
And it comes from the Department of Education. The final school choice allocation and charges are determined sometime around this time of year, maybe a little earlier in the year. So our reimbursement for school choice this year, I'm going to say, is probably a shortfall. Because if they're projecting 14 less for next year, that means we projected 14 more for this year than we're going to get. That make sense to you? In other words,
don't quiz me, but I think I can follow you.
let me see if I can explain it more easily. The number for next year is based upon the actual for this year.
Okay.
Okay?
5,000, that'd be 54 or so. Because the charge is $273,000, so that would be roughly 50.
Yeah, but I was looking at the 72. Yes, you can do it the other way. By 5, it's 52 or whatever it is, something like that. 51. Or my math wrong? No, 5 is 250 plus another 5. So there's 55, roughly 55. That was budgeted this year, which was what was the charge on the cherry sheet a year ago. Okay? So last year's number is last year's cherry sheet. Then we got around, so that was the number that was put into the in-kind services. Well, no, I won't say into the in-kind services. That's the amount of money that theoretically was available to replenish or go into the school choice fund or account, whatever you want to call it. It turns out it's going to be 70,000 less than that. So the 273 is what they got this year, and they might have projected as much as 346. But what they actually used was based upon their budget and what they thought they were going to get. So it could be something entirely different than that number.
This is money that goes out. This is money that goes out from Granby.
Yeah.
So it's charged to the schools as part of net school spending. The town contribution.
As part of the town contribution, yes.
Yeah, part-time contributions. So they're benefiting $100,000 from these two accounts.
Yes. No. Yes. They're benefiting.
Yeah, because for this year, they were charged 346,000 plus 362,000. They were charged over $700,000 that got charged against net school spending. And for next year, they're going to get charged roughly 600,000.
Yep.
So they've picked up $100,000 for their budget.
I'm not sure if that's 100% accurate.
Yeah.
I mean, the reason I say I'm not sure if it's 100% accurate, you got to define what you mean for their budget.
Hey, guys, this is Adam. I don't know if I'm allowed to chime in here, but I think I could provide some clarification if possible.
Sure.
So first of all, good evening. Second, yes, the amount on the cherry sheet for the school choice out that we are charged back in kind, and we are using just under $700,000 for school choice in revenue to offset our 23 budget.
This is from students coming into Granby.
Correct. School choice students choicing into Granby is just under $700,000 the projection right now, and that can change. They'll true up in the fall again, so that could change. That could go up or down in the fall depending on how enrollment goes.
So they've given you a figure for your budget, but the actual figure doesn't determine until students show up in class?
Well, so no. So the number that we use to offset the 23 budget is the number that we know right now. That number is good until we submit SIMS reports in October, and then they'll chew up that number in late fall, early winter again.
Okay, so they're telling you that you're going to get $700,000, but that could turn out to be $680,000.
Correct. Or it could be 720,000. It could go either way, but yes, correct. Yep.
Okay. The two figures that we're talking about, on the state assessment, there's a school choice tuition and a charter school tuition, and it's the amount of money that Granby has to pay to other districts for Granby students who are going out with school choice or going out in charter school.
Correct. Yep. And those are charged to us by Chris on the in-kind.
Yes. And that's where, for the current fiscal year, that total amount was in the neighborhood of $700,000. For next year, it's $600,000. So that means that there's $100,000 less in the charges from Chris to the school department for services. So I mean that's good. It means more of the students are here than are going out.
Yes. Yep. Correct.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you for letting me clarify. I appreciate it.
Yeah. No. That's fine. No, we didn't. We're always happy to have anybody with some actual information. It's quite refreshing. Okay, does that answer your question, Scott, on the state assessments?
Yes.
Okay. The other things in the budget, the thing that surprised me was on the budget for health insurance. The budget for health insurance for the school is down by $100,000, and it's down 10%. So that would be another charge that the town makes as an in-kind expense for net school spending. And so I asked Chris why that was, and he said that it's based upon the recent enrollments in the health plan, and the enrollment in the health plan by people in the schools is way down, so that be fewer people will be providing health care for. And he didn't have an analysis of that, but at this stage we don't really need that. Again, that's another one of these figures that could change. I suppose you don't really know until next school year how many people are signed up for health insurance. Adam, do you happen to know at what point during the school year or do teachers and staff commit to being in the town health insurance plan?
That's a good question. I do not know, but I could certainly follow up with Mary and get you guys an answer.
Okay, that's not a big important question. It was just kind of curiosity, but it may affect what the actual figure is.
Yeah, because that's a pretty significant amount of decrease in health insurance.
Yeah.
And we haven't had like many retirements, and we would still pay that anyway. So that wouldn't even be a reason. So that's interesting. So I'll ask you, Mary, and I will follow up with you guys.
Yeah, I was kind of curious about that. It was just a surprise because it very seldom happens. Okay.
It could be that he was overcharged in prior years.
Yeah, it could be some changes in the charges, but
In the manner in which the estimate was made.
It could also be maybe some of our employees getting off our insurance and maybe onto a spouse's insurance or something, although I don't think it would be that significant of a change, but that could be a possibility as well.
Well, if it's age rated, an age and zip code, I think is, depending on the size of the group. I mean, just the mix of the group could have changed enough to change.
the only other thing I can think of is that when school teachers as a job are usually fairly secure. A couple of years ago, we had 20% unemployment in Granby. I think it was 22% unemployment that it went to. And if those people have managed to come back and find jobs, I think the unemployment rate's down to what, 6%, 7%, something. A lot of people have come back to jobs and they're working for companies that provide health insurance. It could be that spouses are switching from the school health insurance to schools, to being on their spouse's health insurance plan with the company that they're working for, if that company offers health insurance. That's the only other reason I could think of why people might be leaving the Granby plan and going to another plan, if there's this difference between what the cost is to be on a spouse on somebody else's insurance versus your spouse being on our insurance. But something's got to drive it. I don't think healthcare costs are going down.
Well, if you have older people die and younger people come in, that's going to change the census.
That could too. Yeah.
Yeah, your thought, John, on people switching. I can't think of why anybody would want to switch off the teacher's health insurance plan, given how good the retirement benefits are as against what our benefits are for private industry.
Yeah.
So I suppose they could switch now, and then when they're ready to get ready to retire, switch back. But
Okay. Well, Scott, like I said, we haven't had a chance to talk to Chris yet about the warrant articles. So we're intending to get background information on those from him tomorrow, and then we'll have a meeting tomorrow night, and we can talk about the warrant articles. You got any other questions that you think occur to you? Any questions on the warrant articles that you think about ahead of time? I hadn't asked you to do that, but
So did I get a copy of the warrant articles?
Yeah, I think I emailed them. I emailed copies of the warrant articles and the pay schedule for the Appendix F or whatever it is, Appendix D, and the debt retirement schedule.
I'll go back and find it.
Okay. Let me write
It was in an email forwarded from Chris, and I think on my email program anyways, it said FYI, draft ATM warrant,
Okay,
and I can't tell you what else was there.
Scott, I'll just email you again on that thing. I'll send it to you by email again.
I don't want there to be like an email problem.
No.
No, that was a bad joke, sorry.
It won't be, any other questions then? If not, I would suggest that we recess this meeting. So we're not actually calling a new meeting tomorrow. And, although I set the time for the meeting as if it were a new meeting, I think we'll just do this as a recess for this meeting rather than calling a new meeting tomorrow at 6:30. And we hope that, we're going to have some time to talk to Chris, and he'll take us through the warrant articles. So,
Okay.
anybody have any questions?
Guys, it's just Adam. One last thing. First, again, thank you for letting me chime in. Second, I'm going to forward the Finance Committee, Chris, the Selectmen, the budget that was voted on by school committee last night for the school department. I'll do that first thing in the morning, so hopefully you guys have some time to take a look at that. And if you have any questions, you can either certainly email me, Steve, or Chris. And then also I'm going to send clear definitions on what our reductions were and true cuts to the budget. Bob, I know that was one of your big things in the email, so we're going to try to clearly delineate those for you, so it's kind of easy to understand. So I'm going to send that and the budget tomorrow morning.
I'm glad of that because I watched your presentation, which sound-wise was terrible, but you had me confused because I couldn't tell what were cuts, what were reductions, and what you ended up with, given that I had, a couple of different lists of cuts and proposed cuts and whatnot, so.
Okay, so what I'll try to do,
get
Bob,
it
is
firm, it should be fine.
I'll try to refer to your email and kind of answer based on the email that you sent. Hopefully that will be clear. And if not, we can certainly chat about it.
Okay.
Adam, there's one particular thing maybe you might find out for us. I believe that the schools you were talking about, there's a $200,000 federal fund. I don't know if it was part of ESSER funds or whether it was something else that was originally intended to be used to reimburse for school lunches, and that you think that in fact can be switched over to a different purpose. I think you were thinking about the contribution to the cafeteria.
Yeah. So what we had discussed with Chris, me, Steve, and Chris on, I think it was last Friday, was that Chris had originally asked us to try to get our cuts down to about a $400,000 deficit, where he felt pretty comfortable he could fund us at $400,000 over our proposed budget. We had some late costs come in, like our oil we got last week went up almost $1 a gallon, which put a pretty big took a pretty big chunk out of our budget. So what we offered to Chris was that we would use $200,000 of our school lunch revolving fund, because we have a pretty hefty balance in there, or surplus in there right now, because of the free meals over the last 2 years for COVID. And we are really handcuffed on what we can use that money for, which is just school lunch related expenses. So what we had asked him was, can we help offset if those capital requests move forward, in particular the cafeteria? We would help offset $200,000 of that with school lunch, and instead, could you give us, instead of $400,000, $600,000 to help fund our budget? So at the end, it's a net zero, but we're going to give you guys $200,000, and he gave it back to us in the budget. So that's coming from the school lunch revolving account.
I see. So it's not that the federal funds are being used. It's that the federal funds were used for what they were intended for, but you had other funds that you were going to use for that, and that's what's now available as long as it's somehow lunch related.
Yeah, so the school lunch revolving is strictly funds that we can use to update equipment in our kitchen. It's very limited to what we can do. So we're saying, because we have a pretty good surplus, and we don't need to update anything really at East Meadow, and we're not going to update anything at the high school without, major renovation, we can certainly kick in about a couple $100,000 to offset that capital request. So what we wanted to be clear is, at the end of the day, it's a net zero. It's not really costing the town $200,000 more, because we're giving it to you to offset the capital request.
Got it. Okay, thank you. All right,
You're
if
welcome.
nothing else, then I'll take a motion to recess until 6:30 tomorrow.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much for attending.
Okay.
Bye-bye.